And maybe up until like Friday, there was a lot of talk of why are Chelsea linked to so many players? Because they're not selling anybody. But in the past 12 to 24 hours, Saudi Arabia and the Public Investment Fund have been buying Chelsea's dead wood like it's going out of fashion. And we'll move on to the potential new signings coming in a minute. But Brandon, what is your take on what Chelsea are doing? Because a lot of fan bases, Liverpool fans and Arsenal fans, especially online, are fuming. We've all seen the threads, we've all seen the articles, the quote tweets. Fuming. They believe that Chelsea are cheating. They believe that Chelsea have got a dodgy relationship with Saudi Arabia. That the PIF should not be invested in Clearlake because Clearlake are a majority shareholder and owner of Chelsea. But what do you personally make of it? Is it right what Chelsea are doing and the relationship they've got to sell these players and raise what could be as high in terms of transfer fees and salaries as over £100 million to help their FFP situation? Is it right in your opinion?
Accusations tell. What I would say is,
Well, let me just stop you a second. No accusation. They are invested in Clearlake. Clearlake are the owners of Chelsea, and they do own all the clubs that are now buying these players. That is not an accusation. That is fact. But do you think that's wrong? Do you think that's cheating?
I mean, what I would say is you have to be very skeptical over what's happening, because if we're being real, the players that, Chelsea are kind of moving on to Saudi Arabia, and I understand Saudi, the Saudis are trying to make their league better by bringing in better players and better signings. But if you look at the players that Chelsea are moving out, and the kind of money that these Saudi clubs are paying, you have to kind of think, well, would there be any other football club in world football that would pay this sort of fee for this player? And the answer is really no. So I don't know if you could call it cheating as such. What I am jealous of Chelsea about, though, is that they always seem to get a decent fee for their signings, that their deadwood players in their squad, and we can't seem to do that. So, Saudis, if you want, buy some deadwood players, come to Arsenal. We've got plenty of them. But yeah, I don't really know what to say on that one.
But Brandon, let's keep it real though. There's a huge difference between wanting to give somebody Rob Holding and wanting to give somebody Koulibaly.
Hey, listen,
you know what I'm saying?
Like those two. Yeah, forget those two. Eric Bailly is up for £2 million, people. £2 million. The best flipping fire sale you ever flipping see. Honestly, I think fans are just jealous that, like Brandon just said, they can't get rid of their dead wood for good money. They're struggling. No one wants to buy them. Along comes Saudi Arabia, splashing the cash on one team. And now they're just like, well, this is not fair. This is not fair. Bro, it is fair. If Brandon has like 4 bang-up cars that no one wants to buy, and I'm mad enough to buy them for 100 grand each, is Brandon going to say, no, actually, that's not fair and everyone else? No. They're just going to go sell the damn cars. And that's what Chelsea are doing.
Can I just say as well?
But you don't think it's fishy a little bit, KJ? So
can I just say on this as well, right? If you look at the players that the Saudis are investing in, predominantly, most of them are Muslim, from a Muslim background, right? There's even talk of them possibly investing in Thomas Partey. So I don't think it's necessarily a thing where they just want Chelsea players because there's a dodgy deal going on there. Yeah. You look at Ziyech, you look at Koulibaly, you look at all these players that they're looking to sign. They're from a Muslim background.
They're trying to develop their league into something that can compete with Europe. They're targeting players who will make their transition easier over to their country than trying to get a lot of players who are maybe more westernized than some, trying to convince them to come over here. Lifestyle completely different. The national faith is completely different to what they're used to. That's a lot harder to do that when you've got a load of Muslim players who are also exceptionally good and have had good careers and also have great PR in terms of people actually like to watch them play. They have good reputations. It's easy to do that. I personally don't blame him for doing it. Now, what they need to do as a league is to, you invest in all this money in these players, cool. Spend the P's on their wages, fine. But over time, you slow that down and you start to develop the league with infrastructure, with young players and academies that can compete with the European ones. And then that's when that sustainability comes through. People are comparing it to China. I understand why, because China did the same thing with the Super League, and they got a salary cap, and then everyone left to go to Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I think what they're doing is a necessity if they want to compete with the European leagues.
Mo, you said a minute ago you think it's a bit fishy, or it sounds fishy. What do you think's fishy about it?
It's the investment that they invested in the group that was Todd Bowley and then buying the players again from Chelsea. Yes, it's not illegal. It just looks a little bit fishy. And I'm gonna have the same energy as when we talk about the people that get sponsored from Saudi Arabia, inflated sponsorship. Look at these players. Why the Saudi Arabia are going for Chelsea? Yeah, they're good players, but there is a link there, and this is why we're talking about being fishy. When there is a link between the Saudi investments and the Chelsea ownership, and now they're taking their deadwood, paying them money. It looks fishy. I don't have any proof. I'm going off reports. Again, it's the same thing.
One of the things that Todd Bowley is like, he's been bad at certain things, but one thing that he's good at and his group is good at is finding loopholes and ways to make things work for them that other people are not really thinking about, that aren't necessarily against the rules, but feel like cheating because it's just so out of the ordinary that like nobody else is really doing it, like these long ass contracts and, you know, buying all these players up front for 500 million and then 500 million, and then all of a sudden being able to give all your players away to this, you know, random clubs that we weren't even thinking about before this summer. So I think it just feels weird. It'll depend on like whether or not there are like rules that come into place to stop some of these things from happening. But I think the only thing we can look at from like my perspective, when I look at my club, maybe Manchester United, you know, they look at their club as, why weren't we smart enough to find these loopholes? That's kind of where, you know, because I would have loved to be able to just take some of those, the Socrateses and these guys that we took, that we had to like basically cancel contracts. If we could have taken them and put them somewhere else.
I know you want to jump into. I've got a quick question to like
go on
to Mo. Mo, do you think the Red Bull group is cheating or is fishy?
No, but they are finding loopholes, as just said. When you have 20-something players going between the two clubs in Austria and Germany, okay, that's something that UEFA publicly said that it shouldn't be allowed for you to manage the same clubs, like two clubs that compete at the same competition, because this is just an unfair advantage for you. Is that clear? This is very obvious.
I don't
right?
think it's unfair.
I just want to say on this, right? I understand. Someone said in the comments, why is this news coming out now? This news is coming out now because every time Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, anywhere in the Middle East is linked to anything football related, people's backs go up. There is a genuine bona fide bias when it comes to the money from that region. Now, they own 5%, or they've invested 5% of the 72 billion AUM, that is assets under management, that Clearlake Capital have. They're an investment fund, a private equity fund. And you'll find that PIF will probably be invested in dozens of these private equity funds across America and across Europe. That is what billionaires do. They put money into private equity funds that then gets invested into multiple businesses. But I bet you'll also find that the Cronkies are invested in multiple private equity funds. The Glazers are doing the same thing. They're all invested in each other's bits and pieces and all in each other's work. If you dug deep enough, you would probably find connections financially with multiple billionaires, their companies, and other owners of football clubs, because there's not that many billionaires in the world. I'm just saying, right? They're like 0.001% of the world, right? There's not billions of them. There's not millions of them. They're a very finite group of people. This isn't fishy as far as I'm concerned. It's being twisted to sound like it's fishy. They own 5% stake in Clearlake Capital. That is all they have. Now, when you also look at this situation, currently they're looking to buy 3 Chelsea players, and everyone's outraged. Yes, Kante is gone, but Kante was out of contract, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So Kante's not a purchase. They're looking to purchase 3 Chelsea players. Oh my God, she's cheating. They're looking to buy 2 Arsenal players in Aubameyang and Partey. So Arsenal fans who are crying about it if they bid for one more of your players, it's equal to that of the Chelsea situation. And if you look at
miscalculate
the
their
players,
Aubameyang's not ours.
Aubameyang's Chelsea.
oh, sorry, he's
Four
Chelsea. Sorry,
players,
I
yeah.
just assumed he was Arsenal again. So he's looking
Well,
at one of yours.
You're
Sorry,
What is, yeah?
looking at Partey.
let me finish my point though. Sorry,
Yeah,
about
go on.
But still, they've offered Ronaldo's already there. My apologies on that. But Ronaldo's already there. Benzema is gone. Messi has been offered but didn't go. Kante's there, we know. Son, Ramos, Gundogan, Di Maria, Modric, Alexis Sanchez, Wilfried Zaha, somebody called Bono I've never heard of before.
The goalkeeper from Sevilla.
Yassine
There
Bono.
we go.
Yeah.
What have any of those people got to do with Chelsea and Clearlake? They are not just targeting Chelsea's squad. They are targeting all and sundry. They've offered contracts to David De Gea. Sadly, they've offered nothing to Sancho and Fred and Maguire yet, but I hope they do. And this is just it. All you're seeing, you were right earlier on, KJ. There is just jealousy that this is what it is. People were adamant that Chelsea were done. Chelsea were finished. Chelsea were over the hill. Chelsea were going to fall by the wayside. They were going to spend too much money and have FFP problems and not be able to spend. But Todd Boehly has not done a good job on a footballing level. On a business level, he's done a fantastic job so far.
He's done it again. He's done
such a fantastic job. Their new TV sponsorship deal isn't allowed because Paramount Plus, of course, owns CBS. CBS pay for rights with the Premier League. So essentially, they're not allowing them to do that. But do you know how big a deal that was going to be with Paramount Plus? It was going to be groundbreaking. They will go and find another big, reputable company to do that. And rivals are just annoyed that Chelsea are not skulking off into the night quietly after one bad season.
Exactly.
Unless they prove they're broken rules, shut up. It isn't cheating. It's completely and utterly above board. And I guarantee if you start digging deeper into all these private equity funds who own parts of our football clubs, you'll find connections to all and sundry. Be careful what you wish for when you start digging and kicking that bee's nest. And at the end of the day, Chelsea ain't cheating in any way, shape, or form as far as I'm concerned.
Terry, I just want to add to that because I was listening to you guys when I was trying to sort out my audio, right? There's literally no conflict of interest whatsoever between Clearlake and the Saudi group because as much as they've got assets with Clearlake and all the investments with Clearlake, amongst 300 other clients, by the way, they did not help in any way with the takeover with Chelsea, right? And again, like I listened to your video earlier as well, Terry. There's so many tests and all these checks that's got to be done before Todd Boehly and Clearlake would have got signed off as the new owners. There's no conflicts of interest whatsoever. What this is Todd Boehly, Egbali, they have built those relationships and they're using it to their advantage. You know, everyone's spoken about this, you know, how they're trying to, you know, bring all the Muslim players over to Saudi. We've got Koulibaly, who's got a massive Muslim following. You've got Ziyech, massive Muslim following. Kante, massive, you know, Muslim following. So people are just resentful and spiteful the fact that these players that they thought would struggle to move on are, you know, we've actually got offers on the table for them because there's no way that anyone would have paid 300k a week for Koulibaly. Do you know what I mean? Inter Milan were trying to get this guy on loan. There was no way that anyone was going to match what Ziyech is on right now. So he might have been a problem to move on as well. So people are just angry that we've been able to find a way to actually use our relationships that we've been building in the background to get rid of players that would have been a problem to get rid of in Europe. Because there's no one that would have paid Koulibaly 300k a week. Absolutely no one in this world would have paid him that much.
And do you know what I like about it, Don? Is we used to have this thing in Europe, and you youngers may not remember, but clubs would have feeder clubs. Man United used to have Royal Antwerp and Sporting and many others, where you could buy players from cheaper, and you could sell or loan your players to easier. There is no difference in terms of these. There's nothing wrong with Todd Boehly and Chelsea going out to Saudi or any other league in the world, making relationships with clubs and saying, look, let's work a little thing out. We know that even our, essentially, we'll call it as it is, the deadwood in the big Premier League clubs will be superstars in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. In fact, our bad players I'll use a United player. Maguire is a top-class centre-back in all but 2 or 3 leagues in the world. You put him in anywhere else in the world other than maybe the Liga and the Prem, and Maguire's going to be amazing. So what's wrong with creating relationships with clubs in those countries so that you've always got a place to send your players that nobody else wants to buy to make your money back? There's nothing wrong with it. It's called smart business.
This is the thing, though. Terry, the narrative is that Todd Boehly. Go on, KJ.
You're about to say, all I'm going to say, all you have to do, look at Red Bull and look at the City Group. Manchester City are part of one of the biggest footballing networks who are owned by one group in the world. The Red Bull system has been going on for years. They've been even trying to get into England. They just not haven't been able to break into it, yeah? Because no one wants to see Red Bull Northampton up in this country. No one wants to see that, but they're trying. I just believe it's a normal thing. And Terry, you alluded to before, it's because of where it's coming from. There's an issue. Now,
100%.
if this was the MLS teams, if this was like MLS teams coming from all these players, no one chatting about the MLS teams doing X, Y, and Z. This is corrupt. America this and America that. They're like, oh yeah, MLS is our savior. Now the Saudi League coming in, they got their P's, and now there's an issue.
The thing is, I don't get the issue though, because the narrative is Todd Bowley doesn't know what he's doing, but now they're complaining about what he's doing, right? Because they can see
mastermind.
That was a mastermind. You know what I'm saying?
Now.
Yeah, so we can never win. You can never win with do you know what? I'm seeing it a lot from Arsenal fans. Jess, I don't know your thoughts on it, but most of what I've seen has come from the big Arsenal pages when they're complaining about what we've been doing. But for me, it's just all jealousy, resentment, and just the fact that people thought Chelsea were done. That's what it is.
We never said we're done. Anyway, guys, I gotta go.
Yeah, I know you got to shoot, bro. I appreciate that. Cheers, mate.
Appreciate it, guys. Sorry, guys, for it.
It's as you say, it's where it comes from. I had a few gooners today messaging me. I respect you, bro, but how can you be happy with like United maybe getting Qatar and money from the Middle East coming into the Prem? I'm like, bruv, the Emirates have pumped hundreds of millions of pounds into your football club. Where do you think that money has come from? And this is what I would say to people: do 10 minutes research of who your owner is, how they made their money, and the countries of which invested into those products. So everyone was talking about Ineos. Ineos, though, British billionaire, the money's cleaner. Do you know how much money is accepted from regions of the world who get criticized for having quote unquote dirty money? It's whether it's direct or indirect, it's all interconnected in so many ways. And I went through this when I worked at a high level of banking. It's so hard to decipher it. It's why you got to drop the moral fake, by the way, the pseudo fake moral outrage people take when it comes to this, when what they're really moaning about is, damn, this team might just go to another level with these deals, with this money, with these owners. And it's embarrassing, really. It genuinely is embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing, I look at like West Ham, for example, here. I got no issue with. Do you guys know how Sullivan and Gold made their money? How they became so rich?
Yeah.
I tell you, they own Ann Summers, which is essentially the sex industry. And that's an industry now which is very maligned. It's an industry now that lots of big banks don't even touch the money of anymore. Now, I'm not having a go at it. Each to their own. As long as it's illegal and above board, I'm not a prude. I'm not going to judge. But for some people, the moral compass when it comes to that is like, wow. Like, you think about the side effects and, the wider implications of that industry is massive. But no one cares about that. I can guarantee you, if somebody from certain regions of the world had money from those backgrounds and tried to buy a club, there'd be moral outrage. And it's just got to stop because it's becoming increasingly embarrassing. We have some super chats here.